everyone, welcome to the very first video on my channel. My name is Asia, and today I'm coming at you with the top moments of Game of Thrones Season 7, and I'm so excited. I love Game of Thrones so much. I first hopped on the bandwagon at the end of Season 6, and ever since, I've been hooked. It is arguably one of the best shows of all time, and unfortunately, it's near its end with only one season left. But right now, we're celebrating because we have all of Season 7 to discuss since that went down this year. So let's get started with top moments of Game of Thrones Season 7. Okay, just bear with me because I am silly and that will happen. Alright. Okay, I'm not kidding, but let's get started. Number 1. Daenerys makes it to Dragonstone. This scene was a defining moment in the show. If the creators wanted us to freak out and get chills, then they succeeded. It was a realization that Daenerys made it to Westeros. She achieved what she'd been planning to do the entire show. Even better, she caps it off with the final line of the episode. And I love this line specifically because it's a great way to cap off episode 1. It lays to rest all the burning questions that season 6 left us with. And then it ends with Daenerys delivering the final line. In this moment, it's earth-shattering because she's the catalyst. She is the rightful heir to the throne, and now she's on the Westeros game board. And I love this scene because it really brings that story element to the forefront. Like, dang, this girl's here to slay. Number 2, the Hound versus Man Bun. He had a bun up here. It wasn't cute, but he tried. I don't know if anyone noticed, but the Hound and Thoros were definitely going at it this season. You have the Hound who's so angry and lost, but even more angry because he's lost. It seems like he's at this point where he's really trying to do right by the innocent people of the world and kind of make up for all the bad things that he's done and seen. And I feel like he takes these feelings out on Thoros, who honestly does not care about anyone. He just kind of drinks till he's content with his life. Those two definitely threw a few punches at each other, but the most memorable was when the Hound completely disses Thoros' man bun. After seeing that, I was so dead. I cried laughing. And I'm pretty sure that Thoros cried after hearing that from the Hound because the Hound is scary. Number 3. Ed Sheeran. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Okay, so I heard that Ed Sheeran was going to be in Game of Thrones this season, but for some reason when I saw this man, it was like I had not seen him in over 50 years. It's because this show is so dark and everyone dies, so when you see someone nice and positive, you get excited. It's like a happy relief from all the darkness. In this scene, it was pretty cool because of course we got to hear Ed Sheeran sing, but he also had speaking lines. He was able to talk to Arya. Also, I watched a behind the scenes recap of this episode, and apparently Macy, who plays Arya, is a big fan of Ed, and Ed Sheeran is a big fan of the show. So it was just a perfect way to make everyone happy for once in Game of Thrones, literally for once. So Ed Sheeran, your music just makes us happy. Keep doing it, and thanks for being in the show. Number 4, Greyworm and Missandei. I love them so much. They are so cute, and I love how the creators finally gave them their moment to express their feelings for one another. But of course, it was done in a way that is ever so typical of Game of Thrones. Sex first, questions later. Yet, in their case, it was definitely more interesting because we all know that Greyworm doesn't have a poor guy. I was literally watching this sitting on the edge of my seat like, oh no, this is not going to happen. Oh no, it's happening. Oh, okay. This is happening. They somehow consummated their love in a very, very intimate scene. It honestly happened so fast, but it kind of makes sense that they would do this. Greyworm was essentially leaving for the Great War to defend Daenerys on Westeros. This is something that he's pledged to do since she freed him. Who's to say he survives, which I personally hope that he does because I love Greyworm, but in their moment, it was now or never. So yes, I really love the Missandei and Greyworm subplot. I do wish it was a little better paced so it didn't feel like the characters had to rush directly into sex, but it was definitely memorable to see Greyworm admit that he has feelings for Missandei in a way that is so Greyworm and so cute. Number 5. Okay, I'm done. I promise I'm done. The biggest fear Team Daenerys has is that she'll become the same ruler as the Mad King, someone who will rule with fire and eventually burn to death all who oppose her. There were a few moments this season that definitely gave us hints as to what this could look like if it came true. Daenerys versus the Lannister army. So basically, Daenerys swoops in on Drogon and torches Jaime's fleet. Literally, they showed bodies burning and people being disintegrated by Drogon's fire. It was so brutal. You could see the devastation on Tyrion's face when he walked the battlefield at the end. It was our first example of the death Daenerys' dragons can bring to Westeros if she decides to burn all her enemies. She would literally be ruling over ashes. Any fear that people or anyone had of a Mad Queen Daenerys basically became a nightmare at this point. It was so dark. The second scene is when Daenerys burns the Tarly men to death. This was kind of a big deal because technically they were the last men in their family, so their lineage would not be able to carry on. They're kind of like the Private Ryans of Game of Thrones, except they couldn't be saved, not even by Tyrion. This scene really proves that no matter what's wrong or right, ultimately Daenerys is the one who calls the shots. Was it wrong of her to do this? I really contemplated this because the Tarlys, they decided that they weren't going to bend the knee to her. So at that point, if you're in Daenerys' shoes, you basically execute your enemies if they don't die in the battlefield. And it kind of makes sense for her. I mean, even if she showed them mercy and sent them on their way back to King's Landing, she'd be giving Cersei back 2 more high-ranking officers that could potentially kill Daenerys in a later battle. So I kind of agree with what she did. Yet, overall, their death definitely showed us a thin line between Daenerys being the savior of Westeros or the Mad Queen. Number 6. The Fierce Ladies of Game of Thrones. This is one of the reasons why I love this show. It has so many strong and empowering female characters. So I wanted to make it a point to talk about just how bomb the ladies of Game of Thrones really are. Starting with Olenna. She had the bravest nerve ever to tell Jaime to his face and the face of his sword that she killed his son. We need a moment of silence for her because she was savage. Okay, moment. Despite drinking the poison he gave her, I'm sure she knew that Jaime could have swung his sword at her at any moment out of anger or revenge, but she was steadfast and ruthless to make sure that he knew, and in turn Cersei knew that she killed Joffrey. She is seriously an inspirational woman. Next we have Arya and Brienne of Tarth. We have to shed some light on their little duel because it was just too much for my life. Of course Arya won because, casually, she's only a full-blown assassin now. But that line she says to Brienne at the end, seriously, it's moments like this that make this show so good. Another big scene in this category is the cold open, or should I say, frigid open. This is the first scene of the season when Arya wears the face of Walder Frey and murders his army. It was off-putting at first because I was watching it knowing that Walder Frey died. So in my head, I was thinking, what's going on? Is this a flashback? And then that light bulb just kind of turned on and I was like, oh, connecting the dots. Arya's an assassin. They're all, okay, yeah, they're gonna die. A second red wedding without the wedding. It was intense and just clever, super clever, intense, but clever. Other memorable moments from our female characters include Daenerys, who was so adamant about having Jon Snow bend the knee, and Sansa, who kept imposing her ideas and strategies on Jon in the face of the Lords of the North. Slay. Yet, as powerful as these actions were, they could be seen as slightly annoying. For example, with Daenerys, she kept telling Jon to bend the knee instead of listening to what he had to say at some pretty critical moments. And poor Jon, he's actually a good guy trying to make things right, but he keeps getting bombarded by all these incredibly strong women. But it makes sense that the ladies would be like this, and I definitely support them. Being persistent and forceful is the only way that they can get things done as women in this world that's ruthless, dark, and just unforgiving. In addition, their pasts have definitely contributed to their strength and ability to overcome traumatic events. Daenerys was sold into an arranged marriage. She loved the guy, but she lost her husband and a child. Sansa was raped, and so brutally, by a crazy Ramsay. Before that, she was forced to assimilate to Cersei and Joffrey's tyranny for her own survival. And still, these ladies were strong enough to not let these experiences overpower their potential to do great things. So with that said, another memorable moment was definitely the Fierce Ladies of Game of Thrones, who were fearless and strong the same way they have been throughout the entire show, and they only grow stronger. Number 7, Littlefinger's conviction. This part is one of the most positive things that happens in this show, hands down. Why? Because Littlefinger is terrible. He has been so manipulative, getting a lot of good people and allies killed for his ulterior motives. Sansa and Arya, thankfully, catch on to his game and turn it against him when they sentence him to death. But this was a shocker because the plot was showing us moments of distrust between Arya and Sansa, really making us believe that Sansa would actually arrest her sister. It was brilliant and misleading, I'm not gonna lie. I was almost embarrassed to think that the Stark sisters would actually turn against each other. Number 8. This scene and the entire North of the Wall chapter was amazing. An unlikely crew ventured to the north to do the impossible, capture a White Walker and take it to Cersei to convince her to join the cause. It was a mess. We had Tormund, Jorah Mormont, Gendry, Jon, who else? The Hound, Man Bun, and other weary souls who probably, without volunteering, got dragged into this. And for the most part, they hated each other, but they put up with each other for the sake of the world, even with a chance that they most likely wouldn't make it home. Honestly, it was so funny and exciting, but also scary because so much was riding on the success of their mission. And then the creators give us the Battle of the Frozen Lake. I really only have one word for this: intense. A dozen men versus thousands of White Walkers. Who does that and survives? Even Jon had one of those moments where everything slowed down and he kind of just looked around and thought to himself, we're done. Like, it's over. But I'm not gonna lie, I didn't see it coming that the Night King would kill one of Daenerys' dragons. Especially because the season sets it up to make it seem like one of Cersei's giant crossbows would be the weapons that actually take out her dragons. Number 9. The Dragon Pit meeting. I love this scene. It was the first time all the power players were together, literally in the same space. More importantly, it was the first time Cersei and Jaime got to see Daenerys after all the smack they've been saying about her behind her back. And of course, Daenerys decides to ride in fashionably late on Drogon like a boss. Everyone staggers at seeing a dragon for the first time in their lives, except for Cersei. But it's okay, right? Because she's fake, so whatever. But in this scene, I love it so much because we get to see how everyone interacts with each other, with us knowing the history behind each relationship. Like the dynamic between Cersei, Jaime, and Tyrion, and him standing with Daenerys. Also, I loved seeing how they started the meeting so divided, but once they saw the White Walker, who was a threat to them all, they really banded together, leaving the meeting more united than any time in the entire show. It was nice to not see fighting for once. I think this part was hopeful, reminding us that they're still humans. Despite all the bad things that they may have done, they still have love somewhere in their hearts. Everyone except for Cersei. And the one you've been waiting for, Q lower third. Oh my gosh, there's a lot to say for this one. But first, we must acknowledge how amazing Jon and Daenerys were this season. They were a power couple without even being an actual couple. This is because they're some of the most beloved characters on the show. They have so much history that has been developed, and to see their personalities in the same space together was nerve-wracking and exciting. Daenerys being so strong-willed, she kept ordering Jon to bend the knee, and Jon, being the good guy that he is, knew that his reason for being there was bigger than whatever offense or fear or frustration or any emotion he had meeting her. He stuck to his gut and really tried to make it work for the sake of the world. And then they have sex, which is arguably one of the most memorable and controversial moments of the entire show. We also learned that Jon is Daenerys' nephew, so they're related, yet they don't know it, and they sleep together. It was a mess. But in a way, I feel like we saw it coming that they would end up in bed together, given that the show is Game of Thrones, because this kind of stuff happens all the time, right? Anyway, besides all the casual incest stuff, this doesn't take away from how sad this moment is. No matter what, we want a happy ending for Jon and Daenerys because we love them so much and they deserve to be happy. But their little situation is a constant reminder that no one gets a happy ending in the Game of Thrones. I wonder what it's going to be like when they figure it out in season 8. I can't. I can't.
Sorry.
I can't. That ought to be funny. I can't wait. Okay. And that's it for the most memorable moments of Game of Thrones Season 7. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please feel free to leave a comment below. I'd like to hear your ideas on how to make my ramblings about movies and shows more exciting for you. Feel free to subscribe to see more, and I will see you all later.